Trisha.
Eric.
Hey, would you like to introduce, is it Terry?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, she's going to be our guest speaker today, but does she work for Reach
she does as of Monday. Yes.
as of Monday? Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
So, Terry Castle is the newest member of the Reach Initiative. She will be taking over here shortly within the next couple months or so with the reentry councils and filling in where Jeremiah and Caitlin left off, allowing me to go back and do some of the things I was doing before. So I'm excited to have Terry as part of the team. She's been volunteering with us. But I'll let her tell her story. And April is second chance month, and we at the Reach are definitely second chance employers. And so, Terry, I'll let you tell your story.
Well, my name is Terry Castle, and I served 16 years in Lakeland Correctional Center for first-degree murder. I've been out since 2021. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And since I've been out, I haven't been able to really find a job. So I started writing a book. And if you all don't mind, I'm going to share some of that with you all today. So this is my story, and while it may not be the story of everyone, it resonates with many. In America, we are confronted with numerous problems, such as family breakdowns, sexual abuse, drug addiction, and mass incarceration. My story began in a wonderful home shared with my parents and siblings, a place filled with love. However, when our family unit shattered, my life descended into hell. Throughout my journey, I faced moments where society questioned my decisions, my productivity, and my worth. Nevertheless, I've endured, acknowledging my humanity and errors. Despite the overwhelming darkness that engulfed me, I have managed to make it out of prison and become a productive citizen, member of society. So, story one is Gimlin Holler. Despite growing up in one of the poorest areas in Huntington, amidst economic hardship and limited resources, I look back fondly on my childhood as a time of real happiness. Some of my most cherished moments of my youth were experienced in the secluded and humble surroundings. Tucked away in the hills, this small community gave me a sense of protection from the outside world. Our home stood about halfway down a little gravel road that had been neglected for way too long. Our property was enclosed by a large fenced-in yard featuring 3 hills that sloped down towards a little creek. The backyard had a huge walnut tree, and the front yard featured a hand-carved baseball diamond that my brother and father had made. So as my days started, I'd usually watch my mom leave for work and my older siblings go to school because I was the baby. And I would be left at home with my dad. So on our outings, we would usually go to the farmer's market or to dad's favorite bar, Sammy's. And needless to say, I was daddy's little girl, so I wanted to be near him. I wanted to mirror his every action. He was my hero. And now I'm going to share a little bit about my father and my mom. Darvin Castle Jr., my father, was born into a family dynamic shaped by contrasting characters of his mother, Emily Workman Castle, and her twin sister, Garnet. Granny was strict and overprotective, devoted herself to her family's well-being, while Aunt Garnet, characterized by her careless and reckless nature, succumbed to the lure of alcohol and faced the consequences, including a stint in the state mental hospital for abusing her husband. It was clear that mental illness and addictive tendencies were a part of my father's family. My dad was mostly a loving and joyful person, but there were moments when he would become really scary and violent towards my mom. In those instances, I was always terrified, but I forgave him when he got control of himself. My mother, on the other hand, Martha Bevins Castle, she was born into poverty as the third of 12 children to Alice and Buster Bevins. Alice, my grandma, was a sweet and caring lady who loved her family. In contrast, Buster, that's my grandpa, was a bossy and controlling man. I have memories of him sitting in this old dingy chair in a dark corner, chewing tobacco and sometimes spitting unsuccessfully into a coffee can. The chair and floor around it were stained with that spit. As a little girl, I was terrified of him, although I'm not sure why. He never really did anything personally to me. It could have been because of the way he screamed and bossed Mama around. When my mom was growing up, her life was hard. She wasn't allowed to do anything. They lived out on a pig farm, and their lives was just work all the time. You know, they didn't have running water or indoor plumbing, and mom wasn't allowed to do anything except help her mom and go to school. So it was a big surprise when she wound up pregnant at the age of 15. And it came to find out that my mother had been raped, most likely by a family member, and had my sister Debbie. So that is just shows a little bit of the history of where I came from and why my parents, you know, kind of acted the way they did. So I'm going to move forward. So my mom always tried to make my dad happy, like, but she could never make him happy because he was an alcoholic and loved to party, and she was brought up in a Christian household that thought drinking booze was a sin. So he refused to go to church with her, and she refused to drink with him. Not a match made in heaven. Despite being married with kids to raise, Dad couldn't settle down. Dad was a short, thin man with a sharp mind and a high IQ. After graduating from college, he landed a job as an accountant at a big company where he worked for years. However, his life took a turn for the worse when he added a couple of extra zeros to his paycheck, leading him straight to prison. So my mom and dad had been married probably about 8 years before they had me, and they had moved out onto Gimlin Holler to try to make a fresh start. But as soon as I was born, I was just a baby, the fighting started, and it got pretty intense. And eventually my dad moved out. My mom filed for divorce and he moved out. And with that, that changed my whole life. I wanted to go with him. I didn't want to stay at home with mom. I was a daddy's girl, you know, that's where I wanted to be. But of course, I couldn't go with him because he couldn't be trusted to raise me with his, you know, drinking problem. I mean, like one time he fell asleep with a cigarette and set the house on fire or set the bed on fire. And mom had to rescue all of us kids and get us out in the front yard. And I can remember her telling the firefighters that she didn't care if dad burned up in the house. So after that, dad was gone and mom had no choice but to move back to Ohio close to her family. And she had to work two jobs to take care of us kids. And that's when my life really turned bad. I was quite often in love with I'm not going to say his name. I was quite often in love with my uncle and his wife. And his wife would work at the store in the evenings, and I would be left alone with him. And he was also an alcoholic. It seems like a lot of alcoholism ran in my family prior to me. And he started touching me. I was only about 3 years old at the time, and I would be terrified, but I wouldn't really know what to do. Like I couldn't stand his face being near me. It was like the most horrifying thing ever. And I would turn my face away from him, and I can remember him grabbing my face and turning it back towards him and, you know, just kissing me and doing things that nobody should ever do to a child. So that's where my trauma started. And I started running away. I started hanging out with bad crowd at school, and that's when I started experimenting with alcohol, marijuana, things like that. I was about 12 years old, and I made a friend at school, and she had a big influence on my life. I started hanging out at her house a lot, and I discovered that she was the only girl in a house of 7 boys, ranging from the ages of 6 all the way up to 20. And unfortunately, I ended up locked up in Judge Burwell's detention center. I was in Ironton, Ohio. I ran away, but they found me the next day and brought me back and handcuffed me to a chair so I couldn't escape at night anymore. And that was my first chance. That was my first time ever being locked up. I was probably 12 or 13. And, nobody at that time ever asked me, what's going on? What's wrong? Why are you acting this way? Everybody just kept saying, why are you so bad? Why do you keep doing the things you do? Like, I felt like if somebody would have just asked me, I would have openly told them that I wanted to go live with my dad because of what was happening. But nobody ever asked me. And so my life continued on that path for actually my whole life. I mean, I met my first boyfriend when I was 15. He was 18. And he immediately started shooting me up with pain pills. Before I knew it, I was addicted to painkillers. And then they even shot me up with heroin one time. And when they did that, that was it. I loved the feeling of that. It was like the escape that I needed from just the pain and suffering in my life. So I ran with that. And 20 years later, after being incarcerated many times, I finally was charged with murder. I had relapsed. I had been clean. Actually, I didn't really relapse. I was dry. I went out to the country to live with my friend Gary to stay off drugs. And while I was out there, I had my daughter, Atlantis. And a few short months later, Gary suffered a traumatic death. He had a trach cut out here where he had throat cancer. And I was sitting out on the front porch smoking a cigarette when I heard stomping and running in the house. And he was running with a panicked look on his face. Blood was just spewing out of that hole. And he didn't survive. And after that, I got high again. Within 6 months of that incident of me getting high again, I was driving in Huntington. I picked up the drug dealer's girlfriend, and she and I were partying together. And she was like, I was running low on money. And so the last time that she went to get drugs from her boyfriend, she robbed me at knife point, jumped out of the car, took my purse and everything. And I had been up for days at this point, and I was driving. I was trying to figure out how to get my purse back, how to get my money back. I was still in an extreme state of panic and anxiety just due to the high. And we went back and forth, arguing, screaming. I stopped at the stop sign and I started to make a right-hand turn when she staggered out in front of my car. I hit her at less than 1 mile an hour, and that caused her kidney to rupture, and she died a few days later. And I subsequently was charged with first-degree murder and incarcerated for 16 years. So that's just a little bit of my story. I don't know if I overwent my time, but if anybody has any questions or comments, I'm open.
That was a pretty powerful story. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Being it is Second Chance Month and you were in there for 16 years at Lakin, what were some of the things that you found to be barriers coming back into society?
There's a lot of barriers coming back into society. My biggest one was meaningful work. I mean, that's not the case with everybody because mine was a violent felony. But and not for me personally. I was lucky enough to have a home plan. You know, my boyfriend and my mom were still, you know, alive and doing well. But that's a huge barrier for other people. Transportation, daycare, like, you know, there's all kinds of issues for people that have children when they get out. But for me, number one was a job. I mean, I was too old. I wasn't going to work in fast food. I mean, I did work in fast food. I mean, I worked at many jobs, you know, in the time before I went back to Marshall University and got my RBA in psychology. And I did my PRSS training. Then I found out I couldn't get a job in that because I didn't have enough hours done. So I started volunteering with the Reach Initiative to get my 500 hours. And now, 3 years later, I got hired by the Reach Initiative and finished my 500 hours. So now I can actually take that test that I had hoped to take 2 years prior. So yeah, jobs, that's a big barrier in housing.
Okay. How about documentation? Did you have all that by the time you left Lakin? Did they help you with birth certificate ID, or did you already have that?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. When I first arrived at Lakin, that was automatic. Automatically, when you went into Lakin, you filled out the paperwork. They got a copy of your social security card and your birth certificate, and it went in a file in records. After the mass overcrowding, that stopped. Like, I don't know when it stopped, but all of that, like, people were leaving, they didn't have any of those documents. And mass overcrowding caused a whole lot of problems in the prison system. It really just cut out a lot of services. If you didn't have a family member or somebody to you were pretty much, you know, what?
Okay, thank you. So when you walked out, you had everything you needed, documentation wise. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. But not because of them, because my mom sent them to me.
Right.
Dude, feels super dickheaded, but I like have to go in there, the meeting room, to get my paper. We'll just go in there and so.
And I think one of the biggest problems also coming out is, I mean, if you've done any amount of time, like 5 years or more, is the shock to society. Like, you know, like I was in constant panic mode, fight or flight, because I felt like I couldn't be out in big open spaces. It freaked me out. I was used to being so confined in that small cell that it was overwhelming. I mean, my husband, my now husband, we got married, literally had to hold my hand and go with me to the grocery store, and like he really understood what I was going through.
I
So,
think legislation passed, I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I think the legislation passed where the DMV is supposed to issue an ID upon release, an actual DMV ID, not just a prison ID or jail ID.
It did pass, except for it is going to be a trial and it will be in Huntington at, what is it, Southwestern? So it will start there as a pilot program and then roll out. So
You still need to have a birth certificate, social security card for that, won't you?
I thought you could take your one and trade it in for the other if you have the money and don't have any fines or anything, but
Yeah, that was the problem that was early on, was that they would take that prison ID down there and they would be like, no, that's not acceptable.
I,
um,
what
I don't believe you can take it to the DMV to get like traded in for. You mean the one that they're supposed to be doing, or the ID that you have they issue now, the DCR ID? Because the DCR, the ID that they give you at DCR, you can't take to the DMV to get your ID. You still have to take like your birth certificate and your
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
documentation.
Yeah, you still have to take all
So
that.
this one, the one that they give you now that they just passed the legislation, and that would be Western. Huntington is Western Regional. Will that one? That's a good question. Will that one work to just take to the DMV and switch? I'm gonna find that out.
So that's good information, yes.
How many agencies do we have on here right now will help with funding to get an ID? If it's like 10 or 20 bucks, how many agencies? Melissa, I know that you and I had talked about this. I
mean-
know that Catholic Charities, if all the stars align and the angels start singing, I can definitely help somebody get money lined up for IDs. Is there any other agencies on here?
But it has to be in our area, the area we serve. But yes.
I think Jobs and Hope does that as well.
Jobs and Hope is the last money in,
Oh.
but yes, they will. And usually in Martinsburg, in my area, before they would reach out to us to help get those monies lined up. So, but yes, Jobs and Hope is one.
Vision of Rehabilitation Services would be, excuse me, a place for people who have a disability. Go and be able, they do vocational rehabilitation, and they can help with most barriers to employment, whether that's counseling, whether that's tutoring to get your driver's license, things like that. They also help with job placement as far as the only criteria that somebody has to have is they have to have a disability under ADA, which is a very broad definition of whether you have a disability or not. Now I don't know if it would help in this particular instance of just getting the ID, but it might help with that particular, but it would be a good resource for anybody trying to go into reentry.
That brings up an interesting thing. If somebody has a disability, gets convicted,
Mm-hmm,
goes to prison,
mm-hmm.
and they lose their disability payment, whether it's SSI, SSDI, SS, whatever, and they get released, can you all help them get reestablished?
I need to check on that.
Generally,
Sherry,
if
let
they
me
were,
make a note
if
to
they
check on
had
that.
benefits prior to going in and they stop that, they can just call when they get out and usually have this restarted.
I've had 3 or 4 people who have like met with giant barriers trying to get their benefits restarted. And I have given the reentry council number out like Tic Tacs. So if anybody's getting calls, it's probably been my fault.
Well, now the Reach has they're on the tablets in the jails and prisons now. So for the information for various things, but also the Reach Back navigators. So I'm sure, Krisha, can you give us an update on that? I'm sure they're being flooded with calls.
So, we are on the tablets now, and, the only way that they can connect with us is through the Getting Out app. So that has all come to emails that I monitor. So I am doing my best to keep track of a spreadsheet and, what their needs are. I kind of ask them, I send them an initial email or message, what's your release date, where you're going to, do you have any charges that will prevent housing? What are your immediate needs? So just I can get an assessment of what they need, when, and then try and field that to, if we have navigators in that area that can work with them, reaching out to the councils, how they can provide support for them. Ashley, I saw you on here a little bit ago.
I'm here.
Yep, there you are. I see you. So Ashley and I have actually gotten to do this twice, and I had another one yesterday. Actually, I didn't include you, but we are working with one of the is she a counselor at Tigert Valley? And so we have gotten to do some Zoom calls with some ladies so that we can actually talk with them to assess what their needs are and how we can get them connected with the appropriate resources. You know, we understand that that's not going to happen in every facility, and it is kind of time consuming, but it's been a great experience for us to know what questions to ask and how to direct them to the appropriate resources. So like I said, you know, right now it's just kind of me fielding those things, but if other people have access to the Getting Out app, we can connect that way with them and you can work directly with them. Ashley and I were provided a list of all the PRSSs. So we can connect with them now to say, hey, this person's at this facility, can you connect with them so that they're not using their money on the tablets? You know, 15 cents to us is not a lot, but when you're making less than $30 a month, that's a lot. So if somebody else can connect with them and save them that money so they can connect with family, friends, whoever, I would rather connect with them to pass information along, say, hey, this person's dropping off intake paperwork for you. This is how you need to, you know, complete it, get it back to them.
Yeah, I just sent you a message. If we can get the information, I can try and reach out to
Okay.
reach out and see what I can get accomplished.
Perfect. Is your email address up in here somewhere too?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll get it and I'll send
pretty
it.
sure I put it up in there.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Krista and Ashley, something I was thinking of is that one of the things I'm charged with and I'm really passionate about is continuing their medical care post. So what I'm thinking is we have some offer, like basically we have some from behind the walls to being put back into society, where you can be eligible for some free doses to bridge that gap. So if anyone, I have Sublocade, which that's really a big deal because if they get their last dose right before they're let out, we actually at no charge can potentially, if they qualify, get 2 additional doses. So that's almost like 3 months that they can, you know, kind of sort out their life, figure out, okay, where am I going? What's happening? Who am I living with? Just kind of get all those pieces together and have a clear mind. And also from just the high overdose rates post incarceration, that could help with that. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that there are some programs that may or may not be, you know, out there or visible that I could help with. So just please lean on me if you need anything.
Bonnie, question.
Yes.
Because we were, sorry if I didn't mean to interrupt
Oh,
anyone.
no.
We work in Maryland and West Virginia, but we work in the detention center in Maryland on the border of West Virginia.
Yes.
And what we run into all the time, and Jim chime in, is as people are being released, it's getting that and the West Virginia folks getting that are going back to Mineral or whatever county, we're running into they're unable to get that medication. So
Yes.
then it starts the whole cycle over. So
Yes.
I'm wondering if we could bridge a gap there.
Yeah, and then particularly like if they're on the border there, in Virginia, we actually added to our networks Safeway grocery stores. So if they're near one of those, they actually, okay, well, it's just a thought. We're essentially, you'll see over the next year or so, it's starting to spread out and having more places to go to have it administered, because that's another challenge, especially in rural areas.
Mhm.
So that's why it's really important, you know, that anyone stays in touch with me, because that changes on the daily where you can get it. We actually have a person, they're called PASs, but they can connect directly with that inmate, and they can hook them up post incarceration with where to go, where to access, who has it. So because what we're finding is a lot of people come out and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. The list is wrong that they were given. Maybe that person's not in business anymore or whatever. So we're able to give them a really reliable place. We're able to help them with their first appointment. We can get that set up. So really, there are so many things we have that I would just need to know the circumstances on what's the best thing to offer. But we really, it's actually one of my passions, and I'm trying to put together. So
So I'm wondering, Bonnie, if we could connect you with, with Angel Jim at, who's the MAT provider at the detention center that we work with.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be great because she's looking for that specifically for the people, because when they're in the county, they're the county part of whatever the county they're in, and their medication isn't transferred over to West Virginia because they've been being treated by a Maryland doctor. So they're getting out, not being able to get any other scripts filled because it's written by a Maryland doctor and they're West Virginia. So going through Angel would be the right thing to do, and maybe talk with her.
Well, what's nice is like, because they're so busy, they have so much on their plates, we'll actually just take them and they can work with this person, and they can check it off, like, okay, someone's handling that, because there's so much to it, just little pieces and puzzles, and we do the whole thing. So because it's protected information, health information, I can't have it, but we basically outsource with a company that can do it all for them.
Okay.
Sorry guys, has anyone spoke with Heather Rosen at the Mac Clinic in Kaiser?
I believe Heather Rosen does do Sublocade, I think. Besides
Yeah.
Rosen, I think Trinity Healthcare in
Yeah, from
Romney.
what I've heard, she is doing it now, guys, and that's Mineral County. That's right across that bridge. She's on C Street.
Okay.
Recovery Care. Check with
Yep.
her, guy. I used to work for her, so but yeah, check with her. She would probably be more than willing to help them out.
Yeah, and if I know that they're giving it, then I can give, and we can get them on a list. So, but you have to opt in. And there's a whole, you can go to sublocade.com, you could find a provider and they can be added to that list. So even if bare minimum, she wants to be on the list, we could do that, but she has to opt in. She may want to do that.
And she has her own pharmacy because she got upset. She got upset over that 3-day hold thing they were doing. So she just put a pharmacy right in her building too. So they go out from their appointment with her, they walk right into her pharmacy and pick their stuff up immediately.
That's great.
So just a heads up, maybe check with her and see if she's willing to help us out.
That's awesome information to have.
Yep, thank you for that. When did they start doing the Sublocade injections? Because I had sent somebody there maybe 6 months ago, and they said they don't do them there. So
okay, maybe they're not. Now I still talk. I was a counselor there, and I still talk to counselors who work there. And I just talked to one like 2 weeks ago, and she said Heather's starting to do the shot, unless she gave me misinformation. Because I was on her about doing it when I worked there, because everybody said, why can't I just get the shot? It's once 30 days. They don't have to take that film every day, a couple times a day. So we started talking to her. Plus, you don't have to worry about them selling it in the streets either. It's in their body, it's time released, and they're good to go. So, but maybe I was misinformed, but I would definitely check with her. And if she thinks there's business in that, you guys can probably talk her into doing it too. If she thinks she's going to get some business out of it, yeah. Even if she's not, she can probably be talked into it by the right person.
I'll just call to confirm. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And
anything to help.
Some of the jails in West Virginia are starting to switch from the Sublocade back to the Subutex, because they've had a lot of issues with people trying to cut the injection site open. We know they sometimes get up in arms about it, and I just explained to them, listen, unless you've been in active addiction, you don't understand how we think. We will do anything, and we know manipulation, and we're going to figure out if we think we could cut our leg off because something might happen, then we're going to cut our leg off. It's part of where we're at in our mind. So, but they're So now some of them are going back to Subutex versus the sub-blockade, which is actually better for us on the outside because there's more options to clinics to get the Subutex than there is the sub-blockade. So
Hey, Catherine, I'd love to talk to you about that because I think there are some things behind the scenes going on with that because there are some things going on that's a little bit out of product indication and different things happening. It's putting a lot of stress on the jails because they're having to take them out of the cell. I mean, there's like a lot of things going on. So I'd love to talk to you about that. Stephanie Thornton, she's working on that. And I think Bev also is trying to get that big kind of like nipped. So but I'd love to talk to you about it.
yes, please do. Because the one thing I've learned, and I'll share with you guys, and not to be on like a soapbox or anything, but so I'm in school for community to get my master's in community development, and we always talk about how to talk to each other. And in doing this job, going on 2 years, I think it's been 2 years. Anyway, the one thing I've learned is sometimes, and not to step on anybody's toes, in this field, we're so passionate about helping people that we become biased on certain things, and we tend to not see things from both sides from their side of the aisle. You know, the correction facilities, their number one job is safety, and I get it, safety for the employees and also the inmates. But also, the only way we're ever going to make any change, and I think we're learning this now, is we have to come to the table with an open mind. We have to listen to their bias and then let everybody have a say and work together. Otherwise, we're just going to keep this. I feel like sometimes it's a battle against us and them, but it really isn't. Like, sorry, not to be, but I'm learning that, like, and I see that I've made more progress within talking to the people in the Division of Corrections by just coming to the table and letting them say what they think. I see what I think, and we have to not be, and it's hard because our emotions you have to like check your emotions because we know what's going on in there. We see the abuse. We see how people are being mistreated and how they're not getting the help. We talked about that. But one thing we really got to do is try to just come to the table with an open mind. Anyway, I just felt the need to say that. Maybe just tell me to shut up.
Absolutely. And it's most of it's due to the mass incarceration. I mean, I saw it personally. I went from having good health care to having pretty much nothing and being treated horribly around the last years of my sentence. So yeah, it's a big problem.
Well, and I think, Catherine, you are absolutely 1,000% right. If you want to argue any point, you have to be able to see both sides because everybody counts. No matter how stupid we think the other side's argument is, you know, you can say it's black all you want. If all they see is white, that's all they're going to see. But if you can come and say, well, you may see white, but are you sure you don't see a couple speckles of gray here? Well, maybe I do. You know, there, we got common ground. Yes. And then from there, then we can make those stepping stones. You are absolutely 1,000% right. And every time somebody brings that up, I have this stupid song. I see clouds from both sides now. So I'm going to sing that the rest of the day and think of you. But that's okay because I like that song.
Good. Something I had a question about, or something I have heard a lot from people, and I see this in the people that we work with, and I'm sure you guys do too. And I'm hoping the reach back navigators, I know like the PRSS that our program works under, they feel shuffled around. So even when they get out, it's like I've told all my information to this person. Now I have to start over and tell my information to this person. And there's all these people that want to help me, but there's not been a consistent person from the start of this until the end of this. And that makes it big because they don't feel, and I get it, I guess it's the same as kids that are in foster care, they're always being shuffled around. So do you guys, my question was, do you all see that? Do you have ideas of how, other than the PRSS and the reachback navigators, because to be honest, I think there's more people to help than we all will be able to help. Are there other, do you know of other programs? Is there something where they follow them like we follow them for 18 months? Is there anything else like that other than reachback navigators, PRSS, this program we have? Does anybody know of any others?
The navigators, we'll follow them for a year, as long as the navigator stays with us, because they are volunteer positions. But the navigator will stay with them for a year, connecting in person, phone, Zoom, however is best for them. But like I said, they're volunteer positions. I submitted an Appalachian Regional Commission Inspire grant to hire 3. I've applied for AmeriCorps Vista workers to hire 2 more. So that we can show that this is, a billable service. But as far as what else is in the community, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we have a unique model, and that was one of the things that we pushed so hard in the Inspire grant was, we have the community health workers, but navigators do not have that medical training. They have the lived experience. So as far as I know, we're kind of a unique thing.
I think you are very unique and just across the country, different conferences, different things I've presented at and such. It's very unique. In fact, whenever we met with Catherine, I was like, what? How do you do that? And I just think that it is unique and I love it. And it's a great model to take forward to other places. I do have a question in regards to that. If we have someone on our caseload from West Virginia, say Jim is working, can we pass them off for, if they're a West Virginia resident, pass them off to Catherine or Eric or whoever and say, work with them to help with this recidivism so it's not happening and have a direct connection, because that is one thing that we do not have. I would love to integrate it, just doing that 12-month, that follow-up all the way along, but is that an option? Is that okay for us to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
you could.
Send them
So
our
if
way.
they were incarcerated in a jail or prison in another state and they are coming back to our area, they still fall under our grant classification. But even, or you could reach, if they don't have we're only substance use, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but the reachback navigators are not just tied to substance abuse. So it can be anybody
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
incarcerated for any reason.
yeah, and everyone we deal with is typically, well, I mean, it is substance use. That's how it's funded. So, okay, good.
Yeah, I just dropped in the chat, if somebody wants a navigator, how to reach out to Heather and Amber, and they can get them scheduled, with somebody hopefully in your area. So, yep. And that,
Also,
it's a free service,
There,
the mentorship. So,
there are a number of people who don't have a substance use disorder who need reentry services. And up to now, there's been so much focus on substance use, and there are a lot of resources out there for those individuals. But I think one thing that we really should probably focus on in this, and as part of our reentry council, is what about the people who, especially sex offenders who may never have had a substance use, who a lot of times I've experienced have like IDD, or they have, some kind of disability, but no one's helping them. And there's even and I found this out, there's even people, I don't know what the program is called, within the Division of Corrections that's supposed to give special attention to help like individuals with IDD. But I've worked with 3 different individuals who had IDD and were sex offenders, and no one helped them at all. So, but there's numerous amount of different charges that people don't have a substance use. And sometimes I feel like some people feel like they are forced to say they have a substance use to get help, which no one should be ever have to do that. But the Reach Back Navigators, and Reach is focused about everyone in reentry, and the Reentry Council is not just if you have a substance use, because there's a lot of people falling through the cracks because there is no one helping them. Another issue I wanted to ask you guys about, and we experience this a lot in our field, is once they get to treatment, then treatment facilities sometimes do a really good job of aftercare, and sometimes they're dropping the ball. And like once you're done with our facility, we're going to give you numbers and information to connect you for aftercare. If you give an addict a number to call, more than likely they're not going to self-advocate and call. Have you all experienced this, and do you have any suggestions, recommendations, anything?
I have a mentee actually that I've been working with for about 4 months, and she graduated from Project Hope. She had to relocate from, I think, Martinsburg down to Huntington to do that treatment program. And Project Hope has a sober living apartment for her and the baby, and they are limited to 6 months in that apartment. But with all of her challenges with work and the baby and daycare, she's not able to get a lot of hours in or save up money to get an apartment. So she's like, I'm trying to motivate her to get her GED, and we're doing classes and stuff like that. But yeah, the short-term sober living is, they don't help you really at all to get housing. I've helped her with that. I've encouraged her to put in applications for, Rotary Gardens, DHHR, and things like that.
Yeah, Catherine, you're on fire today because I'm going through the same thing. We need to get together and have a brownie day. I'm going through the same thing. And our philosophy here at Catholic Charities is if they have another case manager somewhere else, we are absolutely last. But if they don't have a case manager somewhere else, we can absolutely be primary. And just to remind everybody in this neck of the woods, if anybody is getting released, I still have your all's backpacks here. So, but another thing that Catholic Charities is big on is we are not to chase clients. And I agree with that to a point, but it also ties my hands that I can't. I had this beautiful, wonderful child in my office, and I say child loosely because she was 21, who disclosed that ninth grade education, sold drugs all of her life, sexually abused, part of the protected group of LGBTQ, and she was getting kicked to the curb yet again, has nowhere to go. She had a 8-month-old dog, and one of her uncles has 2 chihuahuas who will absolutely let her live there, but they are geriatric chihuahuas. She can't bring her dog. She had to give her dog up in order to find a place to live, and she did. And with the 5 seconds of my life that I got to spend with this person, the only thing I wanted to do was fix everything, because there are so many stepping stones that I can already just throw right out in front of her and just open up her life and give her a set of keys that will absolutely lead her down. And she's also been in recovery for over a year and is adamant about, I know I can absolutely walk away from drugs because I don't even miss them right now. I don't even have a desire of all this crap that's going on. That is the least desire I have. And I'm thinking to myself, phenomenal. Yes, that is phenomenal. And I'm just like, you would be the absolute success story that dreams are made out of. And I can't reach back out to her because we're not supposed to chase clients. And I want that person in my office. I want to case manage this person. And I feel your pain, Catherine.
Sherry, what if one of us referred them to you? Can you take them then?
Unless she walked into your office, we can't disclose each other's clients to each other. But yes, absolutely. If you absolutely refer somebody to me and they give you a consent to consent,
Right.
absolutely refer away.
Okay. Okay. Because there's always a way around stuff.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, there
saying.
is. We can absolutely work around things, but if anybody comes up with um a way around what Catherine's talking about, I would really like to be part of that. And if anybody does have anybody that needs assistance with anything that doesn't fit into your all's parameters, I can whittle away a circle to fit in a square anytime, any place.
Catherine, Eric, do your guys' reentry people, do they have mentors like the other, or is it just you guys? Is it just the PRSSs and that's all they get? Do you guys have these voluntary mentors as well, like, or no?
You talking
No,
about like
it's
these reach back navigators?
Yeah,
I don't know if, Tricia, do we have one for this Potomac Highlands region yet?
Let me look at the list from Heather. She just sent me an updated list yesterday. But there is a training coming up, so if you have people you want to refer, I will drop that link in the chat and then
yes,
sign up.
please do.
It's a
Maybe I
virtual,
could, maybe I could even find some time to volunteer,
yeah,
you
and
know?
it's a virtual training, so no excuses.
Okay, yeah, drop me the link,
All
please,
right, I'll put it in
please.
here right now.
Thank you.
because what our program is so Eric, I always say Eric's the front end and I'm the back end. I'm the horse's butt. Anyway, so we not just worry about helping them get from out of jail and get a recovery reentry plan. Then like every week I have a list of people that I follow up on, but we're kind of just like the guardian angel peer recovery coach. We're not the meant like every day where you're, they
Right,
need an outside peer recovery coach. And that's not happening. I mean, even like for the people that we have that just got out like PR bond or they didn't go to a treatment, we usually get them plugged in with a peer recovery coach. But what I've been experiencing is people that we've sent to treatment centers or to sober living, once they're out of that, there's nothing. They didn't, the aftercare is being dropped.
we're
They're not
dropping
plugging them into outside resources. So luckily with our program, like when I do follow-ups, I find out that's happening, I catch it, and then I get them plugged into somebody. But
right.
sometimes they've already fallen back off into relapse and fallen through the cracks because they didn't.
People
So
aren't readily available to help right now. Yeah,
that's
so
why
maybe,
they really need that. The Reach Back Navigator program needs to be in every jail and prison, multiple people, because one person for each jail or prison is not going to be enough. And they need that person because opposite of addiction is connection. They need at least one person to be their lifeline to know, well, even if my new peer recovery coach or my sponsor or the people on the outside are not connecting me, I can always go back to my navigator. I'm sure he or she will be able to get me with somebody or help me. They're my like the lifeline, because
right.
I've heard it, and I know you guys have heard it too. That's 1,000 times. I don't have anybody. Well, I have my family and but they don't really have that one,
Person
like,
that they need. Yeah, yeah.
Do you know how,
I can tell you as one person, it's too much. It's too much. I have like 170 people I track. It's too much for one person. So it needs to be multiple.
Right, right. For them to
So
get
you
for
all tell
them.
your legislators that reach back navigators need to be like 5 every jail. It needs to be funded
Policy
through the
change.
state.
We need policy change.
And every one of us, we all suffer from compassion fatigue. We all
Girl,
need to practice
please.
better self-care. We need to take care of ourselves because we cannot help them if we can't help ourselves.
Amen,
And I
sister.
will see you this weekend at the retreat, so we can take care
Yes,
of
I'm excited.
so.
And Hey, Krisha, tell everybody, because we're getting ready to run out of time. Sorry, guys. I sometimes get on my soapbox but if you can't tell, I'm really passionate about this, and I've experienced this personally too, not myself. I've never been incarcerated, but my ex-husband, who's the father of my children, my father is currently incarcerated, and I see every day, and Eric, and you guys know, you see it too, and you're like, we treat animals in shelters better than we do humans in jails. And it's sickening and we've got to change. But in June, there is, talk about the summit in June, Krisha.
I stuck that up here. I've dropped all kinds of stuff in the chat, so I'm sorry, but I can send it out to anybody if need be. The Restorative Justice Conference will be June 14th and 15th in Buchanan at West Virginia Wesleyan. We have about 30 presenters over the 2 days, so there's all kinds of CEUs available. If anybody needs social work, LPC, whatever, there's all kinds of CEUs available. So if you need that, it is, I think it's $200 early bird registration. And that gets you, the 2 days, food, and after that, I can't remember when it is, sometime in May, I think it goes up to $300 or whatever. But it's gonna be a good conference because we have all kinds of different speakers. There are going to be attorneys there, there's gonna be law enforcement. I'm gonna talk about grants and chasing money. The Reach Back Reentry navigators, Heather and Amber, will be there presenting. So there's just a bunch of people gonna be there.
It's exciting. If you guys can go, all that networking, and you'll learn so much information. It'll give you that little recharge, because burnout is real, to keep fighting. Does anybody have anything else you'd like to share before we kind of wrap it up today?
I just wanted to thank Terry Castle again for sharing her story. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Guys, I just heard back from the counselor at Heather Rosen's. She was going to do it and decided not to. So she doesn't have it. Sorry about that.
So that leaves Trinity Healthcare, to my knowledge, is the only one in our area in Rock.
Is that still chat up
Yes.
there? Okay, cool.
We will keep you posted if the guild decides to do that. We do Suboxone currently. We're trying to make that push to see if our provider will do Sublocade. Because again, they're releasing so many inmates on that shot, and they don't know where to go. So it's a shame to just have one location, but we'll keep you posted if we undertake that.
Well, thank you, Eric.
Sure.
All right, everybody. Our next meeting is the first Thursday in May at 10 o'clock. Invite people, please, especially if you have people who have experienced reentry personally, because who better than the experts in the field to tell us what we need to be doing differently than someone who's lived it, like Terry. That's where we learn and grow. So invite them. They have room at this table and they need to be here. I copied the chat. I saved the chat, so I will email that out. I'll email that to you, Krisha. Can you send it out to everybody? Okay.
Yep, and then I will drop the YouTube recording too, so if anybody wants to go back and watch it again, it's all on YouTube, so on the WV Reentry Council's YouTube page.
Thanks, everybody, for your input and for everything you do. Have a great day.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Krisha. See you Saturday.
Saturday.
Bye.